Mark Kelly and Skip Mozisek join us today. They are the co-founders and creators of the 14th Step. And we'll stop sharing here so that they can put their stuff up and tell us what that's all about, guys, and how it came to be.
Well, I'll start it off like we start the podcast off on the episode. So you're on the 14th Step podcast. It's about addiction and recovery. My name is Mark. I am a professional counselor and a recovering addict.
My name is Skip. I'm a recovery coach and a recovering addict.
It's really good to be talking to you guys at the Golden Crescent Regional Recovery Initiative. I practice that, I can say it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a background in the addiction treatment field. I've been a counselor for about 10 years. And one of the things that is very apparent, and you guys know this, is that addiction is a very complicated problem. And it's kind of an issue that it deals with the individual person, of course, but the problem goes all the way up to family and society kind of issue. And so in the course of working, I work for Billy Cattan Recovery Outreach, and I've been there for a long time. It's always been my passion to learn how people get better, how do people recover from addiction, and why do people stay? What's the difference between people who stay sober and people who don't? It's impressive to see people who come in and who are, bottom of the barrel, rock bottom types, and then watch those people kind of flower into something better and grow. That's the best part of the job. And it doesn't happen as often as you would like, of course, but it does happen. One of the things that I noticed about 5 years into my job was I started an alumni program, and the alumni program was a way for people who had gone through our treatment center to stay connected to each other. And so it was really in the form of a meeting that happened every week. And the people that really inspired me the most were the people who were coming into that meeting week after week, and they didn't have to be there. They just wanted to stay connected to their recovery. And I think it was the connections that they were making with each other and the passion that they had because of that, that really gave people a chance to stay sober. And that's the same principle that works in 12-step meetings like AA meetings or NA meetings. It's really about a community. And so Skip, I met Skip, how long ago was it? A couple of years ago?
Almost 2 years, believe it or not.
Yeah. And he got very involved in the alumni meeting that we have. And in our conversations about that, and we kind of started kicking around the idea of making a podcast to take what was happening in that alumni meeting and kind of like put it on a bigger level. And so it's really exciting to work with Skip on this because he has a background in ministry and building communities. So it seemed like a really good fit for us to try and do something like this. And then we were sponsored by the GCRRI, which really you guys allowed this to happen. So I apologize for that.
He's apologizing for me. He's the play-by-play, and I'm the color commentator. I will tell you, one of the things that I became a recovery coach last August officially and did all my training earlier that summer. But when I started just meeting with people on a regular basis, I noticed there was sort of I would try to get them to come to meetings and, connect them to resources or do whatever. But there seemed to be a large group of them that once they sort of thought that in their mind that they had it under control, they just kind of stopped connecting. And one of the things that we have several people that come to our meetings, and one of the things that I noticed they were doing is they were, and I did it myself in my recovery, was every day I was trying to do something that would start my day or put my mind on my recovery. So I never tried to let a day go by that I didn't immerse myself for a little bit of time into what I was doing, and it grounded me to my reality. And Mark and I talked for a long time before we started that a podcast might be a way for somebody to be able to click and watch something for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something and get their mind on a subject about recovery. And it kind of started from there. And I mean, right now we're still, I think we started this, I think the first podcast we published was December 28th.
Yeah.
So it's barely been 4 months and we're still trying to figure this whole thing out as far as what, it's not the right word, but what sticks, what seems to get the most responses, what is most needed. We're going to start doing some interviews with some people. We have the district attorney for our area that we're going to interview and talk about a program that she started that's doing real well. We're just doing different things and to see what's happening and getting responses. And so far it's been really good. You know, both of us would tell you we'd like to have 1 million subscribers and 20 million views and go viral and have a television show on Netflix, but maybe that'll be next month. But you know, it's a niche that we're trying to fill, and we've had a lot of really good response. We've had messages and comments and different things like that. So we're actually, you know, we put it on YouTube, but we also have a short TikTok presence. We have a short Facebook Reels that we do. So we're seeing where the traction is, you know, and what the actual subject matter is that people want to listen to.
Yeah, we try to kind of, the content that we get, we want it to be inspiring for people who are in recovery and who want to get a little bit of like hit of recovery, you know, throughout the day. And I also want it to be thought-provoking for people who are involved in addiction treatment or who think about addiction or people who are affected by addiction, because I think it's important to normalize the conversation a little bit. I think stigma is a problem, obviously, people, and I think that stigma comes from a combination of how frustrating addiction is, but also maybe people could have a clearer understanding of what the issues are. And I think talking about it in a way that sheds a light on what the problem is and what the solution could be can help. But also, addiction is just a frustrating thing for people, and stigma exists because people go through hell because of addiction. Parents go through hell. People who have substance use disorders put other people through hell. And so
it's not easy to talk about.
It's not easy to talk about. And there's a wide world of different kinds of solutions out there. I like to talk about 12-step spirituality because that's something that helps me very, very much. And 12-step treatment is something that can be done. You can take a 5-minute thing and talk about 12-step spirituality, and it can reach a lot of people. And it can reach people who don't even really suffer from addiction. This is kind of a universal way of living in a way. But there's also a lot of interesting topics that I want to touch on, like kratom. You know, that's something we talked about last week. That's something that we see a lot more of now. Talking about harm reduction, talking about different policies that are enacted, or different initiatives, different ways of trying to tackle the problem, and get into the complexities of the issue, and not necessarily just like take one side or the other, but look at it from all the different angles. So those are the things that we're trying to do with the podcast. And like Skip said, it's still kind of in its infancy, or so we're trying to figure out how to do interviews. We would love to have call-ins and have people call and tell us their story, or if they just have, you know, a comment that they would like to make. We do get some really good comments on our YouTube page. That's really the main page that we want to try to promote. And we got good traction on some of the TikToks too. We've been getting a good response. It's a very niche market, like Skip said. This is not political commentary where you would have like half the people who agree with you. Like this is really centered towards people who are in recovery or other people that work in the addiction field.
Yeah. I think we're trying to present different sides on these topics and not necessarily try to answer these questions
Right.
for people. We're just kind of trying to create conversation. And, we try to use humor, and I say try because maybe you've watched and you're like, well, you can try, but you ain't funny. But we've tried to use humor. That's one of the things with me in my recovery is I find some dark humor in some of the situations and try to get the conversation rolling that way. So again, like I said, we're trying to see what appeals and where the need is as far as a podcast. We've looked at several recovery podcasts, and it to my knowledge, there are some very famous podcasts that talk about addiction and recovery every once in a while. I haven't seen one that you would call that's gone viral, that's just gigantic. And I totally could be missing one, so I'm not saying I know, but I don't know again where what the top end of the reach can be. I do know, however, that in a meeting you're limited by your location and the place where it is, and online there is no limit. So there could be something that we did in a year from now. Somebody may find it may speak to somebody, in their home, something that we did a year from now. So you can't, that's just something that you can't achieve in a room once a week.
I think there could be a huge market for this if we play it right. And that's what Skip is saying, trying to find what people respond to. I mean, social media is very picky about things, and there's specific audiences. There's a different audience on TikTok than there is on Facebook, and there's a different audience on YouTube, and they all have their different algorithms of how they push out content. And so it's finding what works with people. I think the most important thing we can do is just build an audience as big as we can get it. And then we can deliver whatever kind of content. But addiction is it's definitely not a small issue. I mean, this is something that probably affects every single person.
Mhm.
I don't think there's one person that's not affected by addiction in some way, either in their family or friends or in themselves. And so if we can push like a universal message of recovery, we want to talk about things that can be considered addictions that are not drugs and alcohol. Because and you could cover just about anyone. Everybody struggled with fighting for moderation,
Yeah, Isaac, you use your phone a little too much there, buddy.
Yeah, you need to watch our next episode about phone addiction. I check TikTok way too much too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to have a little talk with my wife about the TikTok scrolling. It's starting to affect our family. No, I'm kidding. It is, man. I mean, there's so much stuff to take our brains right now. It's crazy.
Yeah. So
we haven't done one of the things we're looking at, and we have not done it at all yet, is advertising. I know on Facebook you can boost your posts, and sometimes on YouTube you can push it out to get it in front of people. We have not done any of that. We're kind of looking at what that is, and if that's even something that would be worth the money spent on it. I don't know. Again, when you have something go, I'm using the word viral because I'm an idiot that doesn't know any better. But when you have something like a short video, and all of a sudden you get 4,000 or 5,000 views on it, sometimes those views are from just normal people scrolling through, not necessarily them looking for something topical about addiction or drugs. But that's how you get the quality, is through the quantity.
Yep.
So we're trying to figure out.
It's a good saying. This should be a marketing.
Thanks,
this should be a marketing term.
I'm addicted to metaphors. I'm trying to get the word out about what I'm. We want to reach as many people, so the people that need it maybe can get it by accident. Because if you look at our analytics on our pages, most people, it's on their feed where they see it. There's very low percentage, like 1 or 2% of that when we put tag words in that actually search for that came to our video. Like if we have 400 views, maybe only 3 or 4 actually searched a word and found our video. The majority of them are because it got popped up on their feed because of the algorithm. And you want to talk about something that I'm a little addicted to, is trying to figure out these YouTube and Facebook algorithms, because it is crazy. It is crazy math that I failed over and over again in school. So it is that's what it is. You get so many likes, you get so many views, it pushes it to other feeds, and then that exponentially goes some more. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. We're just kind of trying to see what works.
Wendy, I don't know if we are on the Apple podcast right now. I know that we're on Spotify and we are on some other, I subscribe to an RSS thing that pushes out our audio files to different podcasts. I've been a little lazy about doing the audio stuff because we've been focusing so much on the regular videos and the short videos, but I don't know if it's on Apple Podcast or not.
Oh, great, Mark.
I know. We've already lost
Well,
one.
that explains everything.
Yeah.
Shutting down the iPad.
So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we've been up to. It's really exciting, and like I said, this wouldn't have been possible without you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to go and do this like in our little studio because it's something that we're proud of, and I wanted you guys to see, that we're like a real thing.
From the way the camera looks this way, it looks all cool. But if I turn the camera around,
It's
you would
just
all
like
just,
an office,
you would all
yeah.
just leave immediately.
Yeah. But it's all about the
It's
angles.
actually in a restroom. No, I'm kidding.
Guys, Jody and I were at the Texas Substance Use Symposium in San Antonio a couple of weeks ago. And the keynote speaker on the last day, or day 2, his talk was from prison to PhD. And it is just what it sounds like. He went to prison, had this epiphany, came back out, started going to school, and worked his way through that. And of course, all the papers he writes about are about prison and criminality and stuff like that. An interesting slide that he shared showed 4 Venn diagram, a four-part Venn diagram, and he says people come in through 12-step programs. They come in through treatment facilities, correctional facilities like him, and through mental health facilities. And he said, if you just look at the raw numbers, they're all about the same. I mean, people like you're talking about, people come in through a lot of different avenues, and they seem to gravitate towards something that they can relate to personally. And so just happen to see a feed, just happen to see your podcast on a feed and say, hey, what's this about?
Yeah.
And, oh, that reminds me of myself, someone else that's a loved one. And you're very correct in assuming that it does affect everybody. I mean, it affects our country as a whole. It affects our world. It affects everybody and every person in it. And, socioeconomic systems, geopolitical systems, on and on and on, and not just here in the United States, So I think what you guys, I think you're hitting it right. I wouldn't do anything to try and ferret out what works best or who you're trying to market, because I think you're doing the right thing now. And, from my marketing perspective, Google, the algorithms and Google look for grassroots initiatives and things that are local. And that's what drives your SROs and algorithms through Google, homemade videos, homemade YouTubes, and things like that. So I think you guys are hitting it out of the park, and I wouldn't change anything right now.
Well, we're just trying to throw it like throw everything in the kitchen sink at it to see what sticks, you know.
Yeah.
We just want to make different kind of content. We want to make funny content, serious content, interviews with people. We want to do kind of everything and see what people respond to. But our core programming, the content that we create is a weekly kind of a long form video where we think about a topic and we talk about it, and we've been kind of experimenting with how long those videos should be. And I think we've hit kind of a sweet spot of like, 5 to 8 minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't really need to be longer than that. And then we have like, little 1 minute shorts. And trying to understand, like, there's this whole psychology to what people are going to watch on a TikTok when they're just scrolling through. You have to catch someone's attention within the first 3 seconds. And so we've been learning stuff like that. And that's been really exciting. I think our goal is to just keep doing it. Every week, just put out new content and just kind of stick with the long term, building an audience. It will build gradually, and it has. We have like 200 subscribers. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers. And I think at the clip we're going, we can do that by the end of this year.
I hope so.
I forgot to include Skip and the people that were in attendance at the Texas Substance Use Symposium last.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Skip and Veronica were there, and Daniel.
And I'm glad our podcast instantly reminds you of prison ministry.
Don't go with the bad recovery jokes.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're huge in Germany. David Hasselhoff called me last week, and no, I'm teasing. That would be great if we could build our subscribers up and because I think we're in this for the long term.
Yeah.
It's easy to want success right off the bat. And I think I have to remember how important when I go to a meeting, each meeting is on its own something that speaks to whoever's there. And it's a slow process. And it's the same thing with this. You have to, each one, if there's some little nugget or something in there that somebody can get, then it's worth for me, it's worth any minute that I spend doing it, because who knows, that's going to live on the internet forever,
Yeah.
and somebody can watch that, and say, well, look at that ugly guy. Why is he wearing that shirt? Man, horizontal stripes do not work in that studio. But it is what it is, and we'll see what happens with it. But we're in it for the long term. We're not trying to just throw this out there, and if it doesn't work, stop. So we're very appreciative of every person that watches, short of begging for people to subscribe.
And we will beg.
We will beg.
Skip will shave his head if we get 500 subscribers.
If we get 500 subscribers, I will. I will.
He'll join us to professional slapping competition. I won't.
And, there's got to be humor involved, because it is such a serious subject and it affects people in so many different ways. Some people are like, oh, the poor suffering, we got to help the guy that's still suffering. And his family might say, yeah, he's been ripping us off for years and we don't allow him in the house anymore because he steals from us and all that. And for every, success stories, there's tens of thousands of other, disaster stories,
You're not kidding, man. I'm glad you said that, because I think something that we have not done, because it's a little touchy and we haven't put the word out there, but I think something that would be very interesting is having somebody call in or an interview with someone that would be willing to share their story, because that is very, very powerful to hear other people's story. And we're just sort of scratching the surface on how we can do that without being too, too evasive or, trying not to. I think a call would be something we could do that would just be somebody's voice or in trying to figure that out.
Yeah, we have read some comments on the podcast before, and that's been pretty interesting. We've got some interesting commentary on some of the topics that we've that we've done. But I think humor and keeping it lighthearted is really important. And that's the reason why I identify as a recovering addict at the beginning of it. You know, something that we don't really have to do, but I want to see people who are in their addiction watch us and know that we have been there and see that we're laughing and like having a good time. I want people to see that and understand that it's possible.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's important for people who are suffering to see. It's like, there's another side to this. Like there's a light at the end of this tunnel. And hopefully they can get something out of that.
Yep.
I figured out there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and for once it wasn't an oncoming train.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that segues into, there's a podcast that you guys did about the train that was awesome.
Oh, the caboose, right?
Oh, being the
Yeah.
caboose on a train. Yeah. Yeah.
I dropped the link in the chat for the YouTube, so hopefully people can see that. And then Skip and Mark, think about if there's some advertising, some intentional advertising that you want to do.
You know, I really want, my idea has been to try and create content that treatment centers might want to use. I would like to be in contact with different like residential treatment centers and say, look, this is our podcast, and maybe your clients can watch it, and maybe they won't, but I think that would be kind of a good
That's-
way.
Skip, I was thinking exactly, so they're one of the groups that I do run is a trauma and substance abuse group. And so even book referrals, podcasts that are useful in the journey of recovery.
Yeah.
I would definitely be referring any of my clients. There's some helpful things just to, you know, it's a search of trying to find answers, search of trying to find other groups of people that have been in a similar journey and are going through and trying to learn about how to live, you know, in a new way, right? With family members, with self, with on the healing process. So I would for sure, you know, refer you. I'm gonna, you know, prop you guys up and send them to any of the group members that are. Not everybody deals with recovery in that group. It's a little bit of both, people who just are with trauma, but we all know trauma and substances are, you know, they almost live hand in hand.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
You know.
That's great.
Yeah.
Isaac.
Thank you. Yeah, very much.
If you can think of a little like half-page blurb or something, you can send me. We have the all the other Texas grantees for the R-Corp grant. So
Oh, that's good.
people kind of all over Texas that are doing these same kind of projects.
Yeah,
We're hosting
send that to you. Yeah.
For sure.
yeah, we're
sure.
hosting a training in June here on campus. And so we can definitely, I would love to include that in their little welcome packet.
That'd
Yeah,
be great.
we'll send that for sure.
Plus, we'll get a little bit more information about that 2 billion you were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah, I
fee
know there.
penalty.
So that's why I'm keeping track of that, because I want to be able to push out when they start saying, you know, here's how to apply for the money, because they want it in the hands of the people that know best how to use it.
Well, there's so many ideas that I have that just, you know, is our area is 13 counties or is it 9 counties? I always forget the number there. That
13.
13.
Our trip that we did recently to Karnes City just really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff, and just realizing this issue is so much bigger than what a lot of people realize. And I don't think there's just one answer. That's what we talked about. It's a multi-faceted answer to this. It's spiritual, it's trauma, it's stigma, it's medical, law, it's everything. And there's got to be multiple ways that people could connect to this and get, because everybody's different, you know, and it's really challenging, but it's also encouraging to see so many people trying to be part of the solution. So,
Well, Skip, it was interesting because a year ago or even 2 years ago, we could not give the naloxone away. We could not get people to host trainings, to do anything. And then suddenly when you have communities that they can put a face with a name and a family, that something has happened, it's like, then they were on board. And so it's hard to watch that has to be what brings people together. But I think at Carnes, I think you were seeing a community that they wanted to hear actions, and they wanted to be heard and seen.
Yeah.
Right.
Same thing in Calhoun County as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Thank you, Wendy.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's awesome.
You know,
If
the
you-
town hall.
If you
meeting-
guys, if y'all show any, or Wendy, if you can think of a topic or something, anything you can think of that's come up, message us or something, because we're constantly looking for different things to talk about. Because when we shoot them, we try to do multiple ones in a day. We typically do it on a Friday or Saturday, and we'll shoot 2 or 3 or 4 podcasts, and then, roll them out in the week.
If I got our 12
Boundaries
steps,
are always,
go ahead, Wendy.
Go
Sorry.
you go ahead.
I would think that maybe just even for each step, a
Yeah, I
podcast would be
was
helpful.
thinking about that today, actually doing a long form, like a 5 or 8 minute video on each step.
Yeah,
That would be good.
that would be good.
Yeah, I'm a little
Yeah.
less familiar with 12 step as a specific approach. I know that, I've read before the steps, but I think if this is a referral of like someone who is in the AA, there's at least one podcast address for each step. That'd be cool.
You know what? That may be what we do this week.
Yep.
I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
we've done some, Mark's done some really good shorts
Well, I need to get on
on
that too.
step 1 and 2 4 months ago. But I think it would be really good to do that. I think that would be great. He does them all in depth about step 1. Mine's a horrible dad joke. So there's a little,
Carly's asking. in
Carly
the
did
chat,
ask. Yeah.
There is a 13th step. 13th step is when you find romance in a meeting.
yeah.
All
13th
right.
step is when you do 12 steps professionally.
You know,
I
back in
would,
the-
I would,
go ahead.
I would suggest, a lot of people are intimidated by the idea of going into their first AA meeting. So maybe describing what an AA meeting is like, what the typical progress of how the meetings go, and no cross talking.
That's a good idea.
Boundaries are always a really hot topic here. And when people hear about, and I could go on and on and on. The topic of God
Sorry, I
is
was
always.
getting a pen so we can write these down.
Yeah, we've
Yes.
had a couple of podcasts about God and about spirituality and how that goes into
And let me tell you, we could do that. I'm a pastor. That's what I do. I'm a worship pastor at the church. And we could do that till the cows come home. I tend to err, and my wife gets mad at me for this, because I tend to not talk much about that, because I'm scared about over pushing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we don't want to alienate people.
But at the same time, that's a huge part of the 12-step process.
Yeah.
And I think I err on the wrong side of that sometimes. So that's the point well taken.
Y'all ought to have
And-
Wendy on as a guest instead of taking her suggestion.
We should, absolutely.
Good,
Beer.
good orderly direction instead of God. How God can, for me, I was able to, my higher power is not the God of my childhood religion. God introduced itself to me in a whole new way in recovery. And I also think that a lot of people are intimidated by the idea of prayer and meditation,
Mhm.
because they think, oh, my mind is much too busy to meditate,
Sure.
and how simple that can be. And I think that you guys are missing an opportunity to have your podcast on Apple Podcast, because that's much more popular than Spotify. You also might want to think about having an Instagram account, because then
Yeah,
you
we
could
do, but
cross.
Yeah, we have an Instagram, but it's not made yet.
It's not really
Okay.
populated yet.
And surprisingly enough, the Twitter is a really toxic place for most people, but there is a little corner of Twitter that is the most supportive place on the internet. It's hashtag recovery posse. And, by cross,
Pollinating.
right. You could reach a whole bunch of new audience people. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I appreciate that.
Yep.
we'd have to do a whole show on the history of how AA came into being. But both Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson, the co-founders of AA, were adherents to what was known then as the Oxford Group. And the Oxford Group was people in modern society who were trying to replicate first century Christianity, give of your possessions and this and that. And they got a lot of good ideas from that. The Oxford Group had 6 steps, and they included making amends and repairing damaged relationships and things like that were later co-opted into the 12 steps. But they figured out quite quickly that they were a little bit different, and the people in the Oxford Group who weren't alcoholics kind of ostracized them. So they'd be having a meeting in somebody's house, and all of a sudden the AA people would kind of be off in the kitchen and the other people would be in the living room. And so they became known as the God Squad, the gang of drunks. And Bill Wilson called it correctly that they knew that they wouldn't be able to stay as part of the Oxford Group, and they kind of had to move on from there to everybody's benefit. I mean, the first step of the first word at the first step is we, and it's instead of I get drunk, we stay sober. And so it's definitely a we thing that we have to have other people. Our personal recovery stories, a very simple formula is what it was like, what happened, and what we're like now. And, if somebody can get that out in 20 or 30, 45 minutes, it gives people out there who haven't had that experience yet some hope that there is help for them, and that they can do it, and that, we're not trying to shove religion down your throat.
Yeah.
If anything, just the opposite. There was a kind of an obituary note in one of our little newsletters, and it said, Harold B. from Corpus Christi, New Phoenix Group, passed away. You might remember him. He used to bring a miniature cactus plant to the table, and that was his higher power. Hey, it worked for Harold, right?
Yeah.
So, we don't, and other religions, every major religion in the world endorses AA. AA is non-partisan, non-political, doesn't want any part of organized religion whatsoever, and so that was where they came up with higher power of your understanding. And that's changed, and I agree with Wendy. It's definitely not the religion I was brought up with. So,
Well, thank you guys for having us on.
Yeah,
just,
very much appreciate it.
few minutes for follow-up questions. Anybody else out there?
But maybe the cactus is the viral thing that maybe y'all can bring to the podcast. But I do just want to offer, like, I think one of the things that I do in my practice is use mindfulness. And I think I have a unique approach on kind of using mindfulness to deal with things like addiction. So I would love to just kind of spew my little, 2 cents about that, and just kind of have a little, if you guys are, really fiending for content and are
But
kind
we
of,
are thinking for content.
Mhm.
okay, great.
Took a bunch of
All right.
notes.
And
I-
Carly's question in the chat, sorry if I missed it, but what is the 14th step? 13th step refers to picking up people in recovery meetings, which is not always a good idea. I met my wife in recovery, so it can happen, but
It's like it worked for you, Charlie.
it worked for me, but it doesn't always. My idea of a long-term relationship
He's like, don't do it.
used to be a 3-day weekend, so, and 14th step is just what they were bantering around some names and stuff. Isn't that how you came up with it, Skip?
Yeah, we were just talking about, trying to come up with that basically saying long-term, what does life look like in long-term recovery? And that's the 14th step, is living the rest of your life in recovery. So
Right.
we're kind of redefining it. I don't think there's anything out there. We've looked. It's probably like the worst thing ever, and we don't know about it. That's what's keeping everybody from our podcast.
Mark, I always called the 14th step making amends for 13 stepping someone.
Yeah, you know what? It can mean whatever you want it to
Mhm.
mean. It's just-
Right, 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 right.
Catchy name. That's when you get paid to do recovery.
Yeah. Well, great job. Anybody else got anything for today? Well, I'll give you your 3 minutes back, and thank you guys for joining us today. And
Thank you so much.
And we'll have you back on soon.
Yeah, good
Thanks,
to see
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Y'all have the
Bye-bye.
rest of the week. Bye.